Good morning. Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Free Press Media Press Inc., an alternative parties books publisher, sponsors this podcast. I'm Andrew Bouchard.
Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Today we have a guest who's going to talk about exciting things like our guests always do. So kindly introduce yourself to our audience by giving us a brief biographical sketch.
Okay, yeah, so I'm Daniel Thornton. I'm the county chair for the Libertarian Party for Nueces County here in Texas. So I have a background mostly in the military, and I'm a school teacher now. So I retired from the military and then got into teaching. So now I teach and coach sixth graders, seventh and eighth graders. I got interested in the Libertarian movement pretty much after my son introduced me to it. And I've sort of been getting more and more involved as time has gone on.
Excellent. So since you were in the military and you're a school teacher, kindly share how those experiences have influenced your political leanings.
Right. Well, so, I mean, I was in the military for 21 years, and I spent all those years in the infantry, and I deployed several times to Iraq and Afghanistan. It's kind of, I think, one of the things that helped shape, at least for me, the idea of being a libertarian is their anti-war position. That's not to say that defense is not necessary for any country. Obviously it is. But my belief, at least, is that we spend a lot of time on national defense, and it looks a lot more like national offense than defense, at least since World War II.
Sure. Can you tell our audience I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was filling in. Go ahead.
How about the school experience?
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously education is like a big deal these days. A lot of people are very interested, at least debating things like critical race theory. That keeps coming up a whole lot. Recently, the governor of Virginia won his election purely on that idea of, putting parents in charge of education, that sort of thing. I think from a libertarian perspective, we're always looking for a private way or private business solutions versus tax solutions to problems. But in the interest of just, let's just say, education alone, and put that aside, just that one thing, how are you going to deliver education services to people? How is that cost going to be bore out? How can people who economically don't have the means of, say, an upper middle class or wealthy people, how do they get how do they get education funded? So that's a real issue that, libertarians themselves have to sort of kind of contend with. And it's one of the things that I think can be a pretty strong position for people who aren't in the Libertarian Party, like Democrats or Republicans who want to make, or independents who want to make, that their focal point. Because I'm not necessarily sure libertarians have a very good solution for education. Just from what I've noticed. I mean, one of the things you could do, I heard one libertarian talking about, offering loans, almost like the student loan program, for people, or opening a school where teachers treat their classroom kind of the way like a salon or a barber shop treats a barber chair, where they rent space from there, and then however many customers they get could, drive how they pay for, their classroom and their materials and supplies and things like that. And I suppose that could work, but once again, you're going to run into the problem of, who can pay for this education, who's going to, and then you have the whole interest thing. Like, I teach social studies, and let's be honest, social studies is something that you could literally get for free, just by Google, right? If you really wanted to do it, if you really wanted to learn history, if you really want to learn geography, I videos myself and use those as teaching tools and materials. So, I mean, social studies, that particular course, you could almost eliminate from public school if you wanted to, teach it yourself or teach it to your kids. Or, Khan Academy, they're a completely free source. So, in a way, at least from my perspective, it'd be putting me out of a job unless I want to teach, like, say, math or English language arts, science even. But even those courses, to be honest with you, I mean, those are, you can get that stuff for free online if you wanted to. But school itself offers something that really isn't something that you can get for free, and that's a place for your children to go to while you're working. You know what I mean? Like, it's also an accountability program. And if you teach at a school like mine, which is very much, there's just no way property taxes in our neighborhood would be able to afford the things that our school offers, like athletics and sports, or after-school programs like the Broadcasting Club, which is a club that I, run. So there's a lot of things. If you're talking about just education itself, you're probably not going to find a really good libertarian solution for that unless you're willing to cut out things like extracurricular programs, and then that just kind of is left for those who can afford it.
Interesting. So other than I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was done. That was
okay.
Education.
So other than education, what are the other issues that your county and Texas in general facing?
Well, right now, I mean, the biggest thing, at least, is what we have, a water desalination. So we're obviously on the coast, and at least in public works, we've had some issues with, we had to do water boils, and obviously we have to deal with hurricanes and things like that, and that creates a problem for having clean water for people. And so we don't certainly fall under the Flint, Michigan category, but we do have issues with our water supply. And so the county and really the city of Corpus Christi, that right now they're in this debate on, what project do we want to go with, because you can desalinization is just taking the salt out of water and making it drinkable. Well, the Navy's been doing it for a long time. Those ships, they have desalination. The question is comes down to who's going to pay for that, right? Like, so we also have a refinery here, and obviously they also have a role to play. So what is their role as far as, private equity? How much are they going to invest into it? That sort of thing. I mean, so that's one of the kind of the issues we have. We don't necessarily have a bigger issue than that right now. I mean, obviously we face the same issues that almost every small government, has to face. How do we manage things like the epidemic recently? How do we manage, mask mandates, that sort of thing? How do we manage where people can go and how many people can go shopping? That sort of thing. The libertarian perspective would be, well, let the businesses decide. They can wage that risk, and they can determine that risk. What are they willing to risk? And then the people themselves, individuals, they can weigh that risk. Do I want to go out in public and risk getting sick, or do we want to just say, all right, the government takes control and they lock you down, and they say, well, we're not going to do that anymore. But then how do you get people, like, things like food or paychecks, and how do they fill their gas tanks if they absolutely need to go somewhere, that sort of thing. So that's sort of been the bigger issues that we've run into. Other than we don't really have an issue, as far as I can tell, with like police force and how we're going to do that. Obviously, libertarians would consider a private police force, or some private entity, getting in there. I'm not sure how that really works 100%. I do know that when you talk to, police officers around, like I've talked to a few that were off-duty police officers who were doing private security. And, I asked them, like, what do you think, about private security being, like, the primary police force? And many of them have said that's not something that they would recommend. They believe that a public police force is still the best solution for that. So those are the issues that we run into here. Those things that we consider, like as libertarians, how they would consider things.
Sure.
But other than that, obviously, like I said, we run into the same problems, or we have the same sort of debates that everybody else has. How do we deliver services, and how do those services get delivered through public and private, enterprise? And that's really what it comes down to.
Sure. How about a big issue is homelessness? What solutions do you have to that?
Well, that's the thing, right? So we have a small homelessness problem in our city.
Okay.
We had a few camps come up. There's one camp in particular there's where the police have had to kind of come in there. And the question really comes down to identifying, and I know people say this a lot. How do we identify the root cause of homelessness? Well, it could be many things. Could be mental health problems, could be substance abuse problems, that sort of thing. I believe personally that, legalizing substances, that people who can make that choice on whether they want to take those things or not, could help eliminate some of that, because then you kind of get it out into the public, and have safer places to get these things. So that may help reduce homelessness, because that would just be one cause that's one of the root causes. Mental health obviously is a huge factor in determining that. Getting rid of a lot of the public mental health facilities that we had actually did a poor job of managing homelessness. They created homelessness by not providing them with a place to go or a place to manage, their mental illness. So I think that would be sort of the main problem. And of course, I live near the border. I'm 2 hours away from the Texas-Mexico border, and libertarians would probably say, listen, the borders are manufactured by man, and borders aren't necessarily something that we need, as far as, like, if you have an open border system to where people can freely pass through, because freedom of movement is kind of a big part of what we believe in. I would actually suggest not putting up barriers as much as putting in more border crossings, more places for people to cross, and find that solution there. And anybody who's not crossing, it's only one of those things, like, you legalize drugs, right? Now all of a sudden cartels have no reason to cross illegally. They do so legally, and they pay the entry fee to the tariff or whatever goes along with that, or and then all of a sudden you don't have the violence that's associated with border towns and things like that. So and then of course that helps us find people who are in the business of human trafficking, because if they're not crossing at a border, then they're obviously doing something wrong, they're not crossing at a legal border crossing. So more legal border crossings, I think, would solve that issue a lot better than, say, a wall, or increasing the number of border patrol agents, at least as far as, like, stopping people from crossing. Like, you got these people who are coming in from not from Mexico, even they're coming in from South America, and they're paying huge amounts of money to these traffickers to get them into the United States, and then they seem to always be indebted to these traffickers. The money goes back to their families, but their families are using that to pay the traffickers. So if you eliminate that, well, I guess the word would be the need for people to cross borders illegally so that they could find work in America, or just a better way of life, escaping. I mean, the Northern Triangle of South America has long been a place for violence and, government upheaval and that sort of thing. So they leave. Naturally, the push factor to get away from that, way of life and find a better way of life, better opportunities somewhere else, that leads them to say, okay, well, I will do whatever it takes to get me and my family to a safe place. And so, obviously, the next safe place is America. And, of course, it's the one that offers the most opportunity for prosperity. So I think that's something that we look at.
Sure. So what activities does your county party do?
So right now we're coming up on our conventions. So we have our precinct conventions that'll be coming up in February, in March. And then I think that's March the 8th. And then we have the county convention that is the following Saturday. We have the vice presidential candidate, Spike Cohen, who is going to come and meet with us and talk with us, and we're going to sell tickets for that event to kind of increase a little bit of revenue into the county, Libertarian county's outreach stuff, so we can start doing some more of those types of things, and mostly just send out the message that the Libertarian Party message. So we're pretty excited about that. I mean, to be honest with you, Nueces County has had a, I don't know what the best word would be, not necessarily non-existent, but not a very active participation in politics. And so we would really like to find people who, have our message and get them in some of the more local local offices, local positions. That's what we're working on now.
Sure. What are your responsibilities as county chair?
All right. So, excuse me. So we organize the business meetings, right? And those are just the meetings to kind of decide on, how we're going to spend any money if we have any. We get the bylaws written out for the party. We go and just do the door-to-door stuff. When it's time to campaign, we get out there, and if we have a candidate who's running, then we get out there and do kind of the same thing that any other political parties committee members do. We try to promote that candidate, get his or her message out there to the people so that they know what choices they have. And then we like to have, like I said, we like to plan events like that one with Spike Cohen that's coming up. And so that's pretty much where our focus is. And, just sharing whatever the platform is doing at the national level and state level, and share it with our county members.
Sure. So for our audience out there, whether they live in your area, whether they live in Texas, in another area, or they live in some other state, how can they support your party?
Yeah, so it's pretty easy. You go to lptexas.org, would get to like the Texas one, and then if you just go to just type in any search, Libertarian Party, it'll take you to the LP page, and you can find your district and county, and you can find whoever is in charge of your local area. Or who's running, and you might even find a vacancy there that you can fill, which is how I became the chair. There was a vacancy, and I went to our state guy, Nathan Watts, and I asked him, how do we fill that vacancy? And he told me, and I got affiliated with the party, and that was how it went.
So if there's a vacancy and somebody wants a position and they're a decent person, they get the position. What if somebody wants to be chair, then and there's another person, so there's election then? Is that how it works?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you go through a nomination process, just like you would any other position or political position. And, they have a vote, and whoever gets the most votes, they're the person that fills that position. So if they are unopposed, then they just fill it that way.
I see.
And they have the same kind of positions you think. Like we have chair, we have vice chair, we have a secretary, and we have a treasurer position. And right now we're looking to fill, like I'm the county chair, but I'm probably going to step into a secretary position. We have another gentleman, his name is Matt Wallace. He has a lot of experience, and so I might nominate him for the chair position. And if the votes come in, and then he'll move into that, and then I'll move into the secretary position. And of course, we have so if you're in Nueces County and you want to go in the treasurer position or the vice chair position, those positions will be open.
Excellent. All right. Thank you kindly for coming on the podcast today and sharing the exciting things that you are doing with your party.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me on. It was a real pleasure.
All the best to you and your party.
Thank you. You have a good day.
You too. Bye now.